Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news after what was an appalling result last night. And I think, like most Manchester United fans, I wake up this morning and I'm just so disappointed. But I think it's really important this morning that we do not get angry and frustrated, because the problem with our board is they see fans as hysterical fans anyway. So I'm not going to be hysterical. I'm going to try and compose this show today around the issues that Manchester United have in a mature way, which is what a business should do, because that's what we are, and have a plan in place to improve what's going on. Now, for me, I'm a bit disgusted this morning about a couple of things that I've seen. Obviously, the main thing is the racial abuse towards Twansebi again last night. It's just appalling. I don't think these people are actually Manchester United fans. I think it's something Manchester United will have to talk about and say it's unacceptable, which it is. But they're not Manchester United fans. They're racists. They're not Manchester United fans, because to go after Twansebi for us drawing that game last night shows a total lack of knowledge of what football is and what actually happened in that game, because Twansebi did not cause that result. He wasn't on the pitch for two of the goals, and conceding a free kick was a bit disappointing. But, and I didn't even realise this last night, I blamed Harry Maguire for the equaliser anyway. I'm sorry, having woken up this morning and seen that image where our whole defensive line is playing an offside trap and 2 metres deeper is Harry Maguire with his hand stood up. I'm sorry, you can blame De Gea, you can blame Twansebi, you can blame Luke Shaw, you can blame whoever you bloody well like. But our captain, our leader, is 2 metres after the offside line, and 4 Everton players would have been offside if he'd have played the line. And the worst thing is, he's the captain, he's the leader, and he's looking at the line. And he stands 2 metres deeper than everyone else and then puts his hand up for offside and doesn't react. So, unless Axel Twansebi's changed his name to Harry Maguire, I don't know why Axel Twansebi's getting any stick. It must just be racists, taking the opportunity to do it. And unfortunately, we live in a world of faceless social media where people will see that result and go, I'm going to pretend to be a United fan and be racist towards that player again. So I don't think they are United fans. I think they're racists. And as we've said before, social media needs to do something about it. We are going to be talking about Pogba's injury, by the way. It's an issue. Ollie's given an update on that. He's also given an update on the title race. The second thing I was going to say is that I saw Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's press reaction to the game yesterday. I didn't want to look at it last night because I was just very, very angry. I saw it this morning, and at least 2 questions asked about David De Gea. And I'm like, look, this is the problem. What the problem we have in our fan base and the problem we have in our media, and certainly in the media, and I talked about it in my match reaction last night, is bias. A bias towards certain players. Now, people have said to me in the past, oh, you don't like McTominay, you don't like this player. McTominay played fantastically well last night. I was very happy with his performance. End of. That's what I want him to do. End of. I've got no agenda. I've got no stubbornness. If a player plays well for Manchester United, they'll get praised. If Harry Maguire plays well against Man City in a month's time and scores the winner, he will get 8 or 9 out of 10 and he will get praise. If he puts in a performance like last night where he cost us the win, he will get criticised. It's an entertainment business. My priority is Manchester United winning football games. That's all I care about. So when I'm nasty about a player, I'm talking about their performance on the pitch, which I've probably described as subpar. But if they play well, like McTominay did last night, I will praise it and say, you know what? Especially in the first half, he looked really good. But what certain people can't do, and especially in the media, they cannot disguise their bias. I'm looking at certain outlets and certain journalists this morning, and it's De Gea this, De Gea that. They even gave De Gea a lower player rating than Harry Maguire. And I'm like, you don't know football because you are blinded by your stubborn bias towards certain players. That's not journalism, that's agenda journalism. And that's what we're dealing with. And unfortunately, there are people that are clinging on to that thinking it's true. Now, the reality is, and we'll talk about Pogba in a minute, and I really want to get into what you were all feeling this morning. But here, I'm going to remain calm and composed here about what the issue is at Manchester United. We have scored more goals than anybody in the Premier League this season. Anybody. Man City, Liverpool, anybody. We've scored more goals than anyone. And Liverpool beat Palace 7-0. So don't say it's just about the 9-0. We've scored a lot of goals this season. That means we've got an attack that could win the league. Because, I don't care whether it's Leicester, Swindon, whoever. If you've scored more goals than anybody in the Premier League, that is a blatant statement that your attack is good enough to win the title. Because you've scored more goals than everybody else. However, we've conceded more goals than anybody in the top 10, including teams such as Arsenal and anybody. In fact, Arsenal's defence is way better than ours. We've conceded the same amount of goals as Brighton, who were in a relegation battle a couple of weeks ago. I'm sorry, it's not rocket science, Mr. Woodward, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, the Glazers. This is not fan hysteria. We've scored more goals than anybody. We've conceded more goals than anyone in the top 10. You don't need a rocket scientist to tell you what the problem is. Our defence is subpar. It's not good enough. It is not good enough. So therefore, the next logical step would be to have a director of football, because effectively what we're doing this morning is we're assessing the broken pieces and looking at how we improve it from a helicopter view, which is what a director of football is meant to do. But we haven't got one. So we've got Ed Woodward and co, who don't know anything about football, and then you've got Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, who's, he's down in the mud fighting with the troops. You need a director of football to convey and observe what's going on. We are terrible at the back. So what's the issue at the back? Oh, there's loads of issues. We've conceded loads of goals this morning. Zonal marking on corners, slow defenders, fullbacks tucking in, midfielders not picking up runners. It's been going on all season and even into last season. So we need to address that. We're conceding way too many goals. The game was won twice. Bad in-game tactics, poor, says Stephen B. Harry. I say what I said last night when I went to bed. I do not blame Ole Gunnar Solskjaer for his dropping the points yesterday. For me, it's totally and utterly on a certain centre-back pairing. And look, yeah, I know people want to go on De Gea. I know they want to do that. But to me, De Gea's mistake was ultimately on the first goal, but Maguire had already fucked it up. He had. And as for the last goal, I'm sorry, just look at the defensive line. Everyone's playing offside apart from the captain, and he plays everybody onside, and then he stands still and doesn't react. People who are going after De Gea and the same people who crucified Henderson when he made a mistake against Sheffield United, the grass isn't always greener. De Gea was not to blame yesterday, says Joseph Tyrrell. I think De Gea has to take some responsibility for yesterday, but in proportionate reason as to why we drew that game, I would give him maybe 20% and 80% to the centre-backs, because the thing that I said last night, and I said this, and this basically solves the whole problem. The first goal, I blame Maguire. Some people want to blame De Gea. The second goal, I blame Fred and Lindelof. Lindelof's header was shit, and then Fred doesn't mark James Rodriguez. No one's saving that shot. So the first two goals, there's blame to be apportioned. But the reality is, and I think people are losing it here, and we're going to talk about POGBA now in a moment, but just let me say this. What people are not understanding here is that it was stoppage time of stoppage time. Everton have got a free kick, a deep free kick. Everybody is back. How do you concede with the last touch of the game? How does that happen? And at some point, the media, instead of going after goalkeepers and things like that, they've got to realise that the last kick of the game is a free kick, and it's a deep free kick. At what point do you start to put some blame on the leader and the captain and the organiser of that side? Especially when they don't lead and organise that defence. In fact, they sabotage it because actually the team has got a good defensive line and every Everton player is offside. That ball is got to go a long way. We should have done an effective offside trap. I've played centre-back. Many of you have watched football. The reality is, whether that's pub football, whether that's Premier League football, whether it's World Cup football, whether it's down the bloody park football, the reality is Digne has got to kick that ball a long way. We have had it happen to us many times. We tend to get caught offside in that situation because a good defensive line will hold its line because the attacking team, especially in the last seconds of the game, they've got to get on the end of that ball. Somebody's going to go early. Watch that goal back if you can bear it. The Man United line is perfect. They hold the line. It's like a bloody last stand. Hold the line. And watch that line. Everybody holds the line. 4 or 5 Everton players go. They would be offside, but Harry Maguire is stood 2 metres deeper. 2 metres deeper. That's the captain and the organiser of the team. Forget the individual. At some point, you've got to actually put responsibility on the role of captain because everybody's a player for Manchester United, but then you're a captain. You're judged as a captain and you're judged as a player. There's almost 2 marks when you're a captain. That is abysmal. And people can say David De Gea should command his box. What goalkeeper comes running out off their touchline to catch a ball on the edge of the penalty box in the last seconds? No, absolutely not. The reality is it's about the defensive line. Now, when I used to play centre-back, and I'm sure many people would agree with this, in the last kick of a game, when you're going to get a really good 3 points and you're organising your defensive line, you look at the best header of the ball you've got and you say, go and win that ball. Whatever you do, go and win that ball, right? Look at Harry Maguire's position. He's almost playing on the far side of the penalty box. Where he is stood is an absolute joke. Why is the best header of the ball in our team stood on the far side? For that ball's never going to happen. Like, Digne's got to kick the ball a long way. For that ball to be headed by Harry Maguire, it's got to go into orbit and head and go towards the back post. They're never going to do that. They're going to put it where they put it, because what they're looking for is a little bit of a flick on or something like that. Because from where Digne is, you cannot put a cross into the back post which somebody's going to head in. It's impossible because it's too far to go. The ball is always going to land. Its trajectory for heading ability is always going to land where it does. And Maguire's 10 metres away and playing everybody offside. I said it last night. Nemanja Matic wins that ball. Steve Bruce wins that ball. John Terry wins that ball. Because that's what bloody centre-backs who are good in the air do. They're clearing everybody out. I'm winning that ball. And yet again, as we've seen time and time this season, when there's goal kicks or long balls, it's Lindelof or Bailly trying to win the ball and Harry Maguire dropping 10 yards like some sort of bloody sweeper. We spent £80 million on an English Poundland Franz Beckenbauer. You are one of the best headers of the ball in the Premier League and you don't go and win the ball. He doesn't, it's just absolute. I mean, that goal at the end is abysmal. From a captain, from a tactical point of view, it's cowardly. You've got to, everybody knows where that ball's going to land and he's nowhere near going for it. And you know what? The worst thing is, not only does he not go and win the ball, he plays everybody onside. So twice he causes us a problem because if he's in the right position and goes to win the ball, they're all offside anyway. He totally screws that up. And for the media to go after different players when the reality is whatever went before, that game comes down to 10 seconds. You know, whatever's gone before. It's 3-2, there's 10 seconds to go. That's where the game's won and lost or drawn. And it's all about what we do on that set play. And there's only one player who messes that up. The secondary one-on-one, whether De Gea could get out more or whatever, the point is Calvert-Lewin is one-on-one. A striker, when they're one-on-one, regardless of what a goalkeeper does, should score. So everything that you've got to look at, how does Calvert-Lewin end up in a situation one-on-one? And it's totally because our captain, our best header of the ball, bottles it, plays everyone onside and doesn't go and win a ball that he should clear everybody out. And at some point, you've got to look at that tactically and say, why have we spent £80 million on one of the best headers of the ball in Europe and he never goes and attacks the ball? And whether that's tactics or not, it's just shocking. And look, this feeds nicely into the next point. Mark, I worry about top four. I did say last night, talk about title. If you look, other teams like Chelsea can close the gap on Liverpool. British media are building a weak mentality on English players where average or bad performances are okay to make it up to the England squad. Awful bias. I don't know what the story is with the English media. Maybe they get more access to the English players. Maybe they don't want to upset the English players. But I tell you what, whoever you like, whoever you blame, I've noticed this for a couple of years now. There is a blatant English media bias in this country with certain media outlets. And it should not be allowed. It shouldn't be allowed because it feeds into unfair criticism of some players who are criticised more than others. And it's favouritism and it's not right. And I think maybe it is because they get more access to the English players. I don't know, but there's an absolute favouritism. And you can blatantly see it this morning because anybody worth their salt looks at as I said, the first two goals, they're not great. But the reality is that game is about the last 10 seconds. It really is. Look at who's at fault in the last 10 seconds. And that's your captain. It's not good enough. He needs pulling into the office tomorrow. And also, if I was Harry Maguire, I've said this a few times, just quickly before we move on. What have I said a few times over the last few weeks? And many of you have said it as well. Harry Maguire with Eric Bailly looks a totally different player. He was Player of the Month candidate in January. And he played with Eric Bailly a few times. He should be, as captain of the club, whacking on the door to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer tomorrow morning saying, look, I take responsibility. It's my fault. I've got to take responsibility, but please, can you stop playing me with Lindelof because I'm all over the place. As you saw on Saturday night, I'm all over the place when I play with Lindelof. I'm not quick enough. My positional sense ain't great. I need to play with someone like Eric Bailly or even Twan Sebi. I need to play with a quick centre-back. Otherwise, that's going to keep happening. And he's got to be doing that as the captain of the club. Look, maybe Maguire thinks he plays better with Lindelof. Maybe he's a big mate with Lindelof. I don't know. But the reality is he needs to look at his football performance, not his relationships, and say, I'm telling you now, you play better with Eric Bailly than you do with Lindelof. And he needs to be vocal about his career, because at the moment, there's a lot of people waking up this morning, of which I'm not one, saying we need 2 centre-backs. Everyone talks about we need a partner for Maguire. We need 2 centre-backs. There's a lot of people saying that this morning. I'm not, because as bad as Maguire was last night, and I really think he cost us the win with what he did in the last few seconds, I still think when you're playing with Eric Bailly, you get a different Harry Maguire. But just quickly as well, before we talk about Pogba and Solskjaer, I want to get into your comments as well. I mean, look, Dan Crowell says Tuanzebe was a disaster last night. Stop this. Please stop it. At what point are you talking about Tuanzebe being a disaster? How many more times do people need to spell it out to you? You are feeding into this agenda that's led into racist comments again about a player that is totally irresponsible in relation to why we drew that game. And when I say irresponsible, he's not responsible. Not that he's made irresponsible actions. You throw a player in when there's about 120 seconds left in a game. You throw him into a game. He's not sharp. He's not up to speed. He makes a foul, but that foul, it's not on the edge of the box, and it's not Ward-Prowse stepping up. That foul is in a position where all Everton can do is loft the ball into the box. Right? Yes, Tuanzebe gave a foul up, but I'm telling you now, watch the goal back. Watch the defensive line. If you want to go playing the blame game, the captain should be well enough. The captain should have big enough shoulders to take responsibility anyway. But actually, it's the captain's fault. Watch that goal back. He cowardly puts himself in a position where he can't go and head the ball, which is what he should do. And he plays everyone on the side, the only player to do that. And then he stands still with his hand up. So blaming Tuanzebe over Maguire, I don't know what agenda you've got there, but you're bang out of order, mate, really. Maguire, awful. Lindelof, awful. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, very average. Luke Shaw, very good. David De Gea, very average, says Xander. Yeah, but you know what, Xander? The defence was going to get criticism anyway. If we won 3-2, the defence was going to get criticism. So it's not flip-flopping. It's not hysteria. The defence was going to get criticism even if we'd won 3-2. But we would have just been really happy with getting over the line. But as I said, it comes down to that last 10 seconds. You know, you put yourself in a winning position with 10 seconds to go, and then you're 3-3. You've got to look at why that happens. And the 2 goals that gone before, they do matter, but ultimately, it's 10 seconds. Who is at fault for that last 10 seconds? And we've just gone through it. It's very, very, very clear. But what I was going to say, because I want to talk about what Solskjaer said about the title and what Pogba's injury means. Very, very important this morning that the Manchester United face a huge summer. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has basically said, what did Solskjaer say after the match last night? I've read the quote. Solskjaer has said that we shouldn't even be considered title contenders, right? So that's from the manager of the club. We shouldn't be considered title contenders. We can't win the title, basically, from Solskjaer. And I think he's absolutely spot on and brave to say that. And I'll come to that in a moment. But if we're not title contenders and we finish 3rd or whatever, where's the progress from last year? Well, we know where the progress is. It's not there because actually we're still the same team as we were a year ago because the board didn't give him the players he wanted. He didn't get the Sancho deal and he didn't get a centre-back. And we are suffering because of that. We wouldn't have lost last night if we'd had a decent centre-back who was quick. No way would we have lost that game, drawn that game. But this is a big challenge for the club because the club as a board is making... And this is where we're not being hysterical. This is where the club, if they've got any ears, should take notice. Every Man United fan is going to totally agree with what I'm about to say here, even though we might not want it because we want the right winger. They're going to agree with what I'm about to say here. Manchester United, the board, they have got a massive summer. If they do spend, and that's a big if they do spend and they spunk the budget on Jadon Sancho for £80 million, they failed. And people will go, oh, no. We'll love it when we sign Sancho. And we will do. And he'll hold the number 7 shirt and we'll all get very excited about a Galactico signing. The reality is, if this team is really going to make progress, the budget should not be going on Sancho. The budget should be going on a centre-back and a centre defensive midfielder. Because I'll repeat what I just said. We have scored more goals than anybody in the Premier League this season. So why do we need to spend our budget on a right winger when we've scored more goals than anybody this season? The attack isn't the problem. You can always improve the attack, and we know we need a bit more creativity off the flank, but it's not actually the problem. The problem is the defence that's conceded more goals than anybody in the top 10. And that comes down to centre-backs, but it also comes down to a CDM who knows what they're doing. So if you're going to spend £80 million on Jadon Sancho, this club's learnt nothing over the last 8 years because it's just doing signings for status. If you're looking to progress and help the manager, you need a centre-back and a CDM. That, to me, is the most logical thing to come out of where we are. And you can look at stats, you can look at heat maps, you can look at bloody triangles, you can look at everything. The most important thing this morning is we've scored more goals than anyone, but we've conceded more goals than anybody in the top 10. Our defence is not good enough, and we've spent a lot of money on it. And it's not about organisation, it's about partnerships. The midfield partnership in the pivot is not good enough, and the centre-back partnership of Lindelof and Maguire is an accident waiting to happen, and it keeps happening. It's like an episode of Casualty. Sean Burns says, I've got to disagree, Mark. I think De Gea is equally to blame. As our goalkeeper and one of our highest paid players, I expect him to be a bit more braver there. Well, Sean, we can agree to disagree. I think what we've got, Sean, is that some people don't like De Gea, just like they don't like Pogba, just like they don't like Martial, and just like they don't like Bruno. There is a deep-lying bias towards foreign players in this country, and it's fed by some media outlets, and it's in some of our fan base, because I don't mind if you want to give De Gea some blame, but waking up this morning and seeing the media asking our manager about David De Gea and seeing certain fans going after De Gea, I'm like, look, I don't mind if you want to blame De Gea. I personally don't. But where you expose yourself is the fact that you're going for De Gea more than you're going for Harry Maguire. That's my issue. I don't mind if you want to blame De Gea. I'm not saying De Gea had a great game. Far from it. I gave him 5 out of 10. But where they expose their media bias and their fan bias here towards David De Gea is that Harry Maguire cost us the points. Like, I've been watching football for a very long time. I'd sit down with Rio Ferdinand, Gary Neville, Sir Alex Ferguson. I don't care. I respect all those opinions, but I would sit down and say, look, if you're telling me this is De Gea's fault, can I just show you this free kick is going to always land here as a percentage, and that's how you defend as a centre back. When you defend corners, you will position yourself in a place where you think if the ball goes there, I'm going to get it. Maguire doesn't position himself there. The defensive line is perfect, but he plays 4 players on side. Calvert-Lewin ends up one-on-one. Look, maybe De Gea should be braver. But Calvert-Lewin's one-on-one. When a striker's one-on-one, it doesn't matter how brave. It can be bloody Gladiator Russell Crowe in goal. It can be bloody John Cena. I don't care who's in goal. It can be brave. If we're talking about bravery, great. But when a striker is one-on-one, you expect a striker, especially if Calvert-Lewin's quality, to score a goal. And the reality is he's one-on-one because of what we've already gone through. So yeah, put your blame on De Gea. I don't really have an issue with that. The problem is, waking up this morning, is that Sky Sports have put a question to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer last night, actually singling out the goalkeeper. That's dangerous. That is a massive media outlet feeding it into the public that, yeah, De Gea is the one that needs to be highlighted. Why are you not highlighting Manchester United's captain, 80 million signing, Harry Maguire, who has totally cost us that game on the last goal in the last 10 seconds? And, you know, you can analyse it as much as you like, but I don't think you can justify it, because if you're going to blame De Gea more than you're going to blame Maguire, can somebody explain to me why he's not attacking that ball like Vidic would, and why he's playing everybody on side, and then why, when he's playing everyone on side, he puts his hand up and stands still? It's just a hat trick of terrible errors that lead to Calvert-Lewin being one-on-one. And it's not hysteria, it's logical. Mark, I feel that we lost yesterday because of the board. Defence weak, no quick defender, no reinforcement. Lost 2 points, this cycle continues. And a great man once said, attacks win your games, defence win your titles, says Tariq. Stunned at how many times family fans blame De Gea, says Liam. I don't mind De Gea getting criticism. I don't mind that. But what I do mind, personally, is how he's now getting worse player ratings than Harry Maguire. It's just ridiculous. Look, Harry Maguire could win us the game against West Brom. It's one game. It's one game. It's not a hate thing. And we need to move past all this. We need to move past bias. We need to move past agenda. We need to look at the game as an individual game. And as I said, Harry Maguire was a candidate for Player of the Month last month. And I thought he plays very well when he plays with Eric Bailly. But yesterday, it was him and Lindelof were just awful. Absolutely awful. And they cost us the game at the end, specifically Maguire. You know, the big thing about life and the big thing about football is if you ignore the real cause of the problem and go after other things, you're never going to solve the problem. The more the media and the more fans defend the problem and out what the real problem is, the problem will keep happening. And we talk about favouritism in this team. There is absolutely no way that Harry Maguire will get dropped. Absolutely no way. And I'm not necessarily sure he should do, because I think when he plays with Eric Bailly, he plays really well. But Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is going to be totally loyal to Harry Maguire. He spent £80 million on him and it's his captain. He stood by him all season. He's going to do that. So the most important thing for us here as fans is not to be ridiculous and say, sell him, he's crap, this, that and the other. He wears the captain's armband and he plays more. He's played every game since Jesus was born. Like, he never doesn't play. He'll play against West Ham. The thing is, Harry Maguire's going to play every single game. So the best thing that can happen for us is that actually he does get the blame for last night and he works on why it went wrong. And the manager works on why it went wrong. Because if we keep ignoring it and keep going, oh, Harry's great, this, that and the other, let's drop De Gea, Maguire's still going to keep making those mistakes because he's still going to think, well, it wasn't really my fault. There needs to be accountability if you're going to grow. If you're going to progress in life at anything, you've got to self-reflect and critique yourself. And Bruno Fernandes said it after the game yesterday. We're conceding too many goals at home and that's not really acceptable. You know, what Bruno Fernandes is basically saying is our defence is shit. And he's not the captain. But he's publicly exposing the issue. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has come out and said, we shouldn't even be considered title contenders. What manager says that when we're second in the league? And what he's basically saying is what we've been saying all along. And some people would say, Ollie shouldn't be Man United manager, giving up on a title. But what he's actually doing is lowering the expectations to a realistic level, which is where they were at the start of the season. At the start of the season, many of us, myself included, said I think it would be a miracle if we get top four because the board didn't get him a centre-back and a right winger. Well, we were top of the league in January and it was miraculous. But now I think we're starting to settle into reality. And we'll talk about this POGBA injury now and how that's going to impact on us because we are settling into reality and the manager is just giving you a reality bump. We shouldn't be considered title contenders. And you know why he's saying that? Not because he's a defeatist, because we've scored more goals than anybody, but we've conceded more goals than anyone in the top 10. You can't win a title like that. Somebody just said it. Attacks win your games, defences win your titles. Look at Man City. Solskjaer coming out and saying we shouldn't be considered title contenders is basically spelling it out for you with a paint-by-numbers picture. We can't win the title. Solskjaer knows we can't win the title because he hasn't got a defence to win the title. And he hasn't got a CDM to win the title. So why should he feed you lollipops and candy floss and take you on a walk down fantasy lane with strawberry laces raining down on you? We've got to get real. We've got to be real. And I don't think anything about what Solskjaer said is negative to say we shouldn't be considered title contenders. I think he's being real. It's disappointing, and we're very disappointed last night, but the title, or any hope of the title, went last night. Because if you're going to concede 3 goals against Everton, who didn't really create much last night, you ain't going to win games. And if I'm a striker or an attacker yesterday, I'm just like, piss off. You know, what? We work our arse off. We play quite well. We score 3 goals, and you lot at the back let us down. This ain't a team. It's a bloody apron. We're brilliant at the front and we're wide open at the back. And Solskjaer is absolutely spot on. We're not title contenders because you can't win a title with that defence. And we said it at the start of the season. He should have got a centre-back. He didn't. Maybe he should have got a January centre-back. He didn't. And we're in trouble. We're in trouble at the back. And look, Eric Bailly, what was his option yesterday? Eric Bailly was injured. He couldn't even play Eric Bailly if he wanted to. And he probably wouldn't have done anyway. He probably would have played Lindelof and Maguire. And that is a big issue with Ollie. But the reality is he had no choice yesterday and they've let him down again. His captain's let him down. The captain should be a leader and an organiser as well as doing their job. There was no organisation at the last night and there was no leadership. So at least we know Maguire is innocent in Greece. He's afraid to attack a ball, so he's never going to attack a policeman, says Notorious PPS 88. Well, that's totally irrelevant, isn't it? That's got nothing to do with nothing. And as I say, it's not about personally attacking Harry Maguire. None of that should be happening. You know, whether it's racism or personal attacks, it shouldn't be happening. The reality is we're football fans critiquing our football team's performance last night. And as footballers, some of them let themselves down last night big time. And they need to take a long, hard look at themselves this morning. You know, I wouldn't sell Harry Maguire. I'd play him with Eric Bailly as much as I could between now and the end of the season, and I'd assess it then. Team selection is the issue. It's obvious that Maguire and Lindelof don't work, yet Ollie keeps selecting them, says Vincent McDonnell. Well, let's talk about Paul Pogba's injury. Please smash a like on the video, by the way. Bottom right-hand corner to do that, and subscribe. Also, can I just allude to Flick, the Flick app, which is basically a Manchester United stand app. 24/7 chat. It's free to download. Loads of chat last night I was looking at about... The great thing about the Flick app is that you can chat 24/7 on your phones, and it's free to download. There's polls and quizzes on there, but there's chats about transfers and players, and it was kicking off last night. So, you know, if you're not watching the United stand and you want to carry on chatting, links in the video description for the Flick app. Download it. I think there's nearly 15,000 people on there now, so it's growing, and there was a lot of good chat on there last night. But The substitutions thing with Ollie is a big thing, and we're going to talk about that on the 8 o'clock show tonight with Ricky and Kevin and Beth. But the Paul Pogba going off yesterday, you can't say that Paul Pogba going off cost us the game. It's such a cowardly, weak argument because everybody gets injuries. You know, Kevin De Bruyne is injured. Van Dijk's been injured for a long time. You're going to lose. You're going to get injuries. You're going to get them. If you want to be a team in the top 4, you've definitely got to be able to adapt to injuries. Look, maybe Van der Beek should have come on. We lost the momentum by going defensive with Fred, and I thought Fred was shocking last night. I really think Fred's underrated, and I think he brings so much to the team, but I think he had one of his worst games last night. Chances on the edge of the box, chances to cross the ball, awful. Not picking up his player. His passing was awful. He was a bit weak in the tackle. He just didn't have a good game. And I think, well, Van der Beek couldn't have done any worse and he would have made us a better attacking thing. But obviously, Ollie doesn't trust Van der Beek. We know this. There's no point getting stressed about it. But the Pogba injury, it is an issue. And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has given an update on that. He said it's a muscle injury. Hopefully, it won't be out for too long. Well, Pogba, when he's injured, does tend to be out for 4 weeks, sometimes a little bit longer. If he's out for 4 weeks, well, he's not going to be back for the Man City game. He'll miss the Chelsea game. He'll miss about 7 games. He'll miss 4 games in the next 2 weeks, 6 games in the next 3 weeks, and 7 games in the next 4 weeks, including Manchester City. So Pogba's hurt himself. You know, if it's not even an injury he could play on with. It's an innocuous pass. He's just played a pass and his muscle's gone. So I think those injuries are normally a problem. So he's going to have a scan. If he's out for 2 weeks, he'll miss West Ham in the Cup, West Brom in the league, Real Sociedad first leg, and then he will miss Newcastle. That's if he's out for 2 weeks, and I think 2 weeks is very optimistic. If he's out for 3 weeks, he'll miss Chelsea in the second leg against Real Sociedad. And if he's out for 4 weeks, he'll miss the Man City game as well. I personally think he's going to be out for about 4 weeks. Unless we're really, really lucky. It's a muscle injury. He couldn't play on. He instantly knew he was in trouble. That's not just a pulled muscle. Not for a player who's 28. Paul Pogba knows his body better than anybody. He's had a few injuries and he knows straight away something's popped or gone there. It could be worse. It could be 6 weeks. It could be 2 months. It could be 3 months. But we'll hope it's a couple of weeks. But I think we're going to be without Pogba for a month, which puts him out of Chelsea, Man City, and both games against Real Sociedad. Which means we've got Matic, McTominay, Fred, and Van der Beek. He's got to start using Van der Beek in that midfield pivot. Otherwise, I think we're going to see what we saw yesterday. We're going to see a team that can't protect its back 4 very well unless we play really deep. And in the last few weeks under Solskjaer, we've actually started to play a higher line, even with Maguire and Lindelof. But yesterday, we saw that higher line, we can't protect it because it's exposed by the ball in behind. So I think we're going to go back to counter-attack FC at the end of the day. And I think that's going to be a problem for us in relation to that. But Pogba, yeah, I mean, just when you look at it, it's an issue, isn't it? Even 2 weeks, he misses 4 key games. So where to go from here? If you look at the 5 fixtures, West Brom, Newcastle, Chelsea, Man City, Brighton, Tottenham, only 15 left to go, and we're on 45 points as Manchester United 99. Look, I saw an article this morning talking about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's time at Cardiff, and it was described as naive, cavalier, and appalling at times. This is not a good timed article for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and I think what we need to do as fans, and even I said it last night after the game, I think there needs to be a strong resistance it's only my opinion. In my opinion, there needs to be a strong resistance to start chucking blame all over the place. Let's blame the manager. Let's blame the midfield. Let's blame the defenders. Let's blame the goalkeeper. Let's go and blame loads of things. Sometimes blame needs to be focused on one area. And the reality is, I don't think Solskjaer got a lot wrong yesterday. Of course, there's always something wrong because in a 90-minute game where you can make 3 subs and you make 1 in stoppage time, and, well, no, obviously Fred came on as well. You could have brought Van der Beek on. You could have brought Matic on. There are decisions he could have made that would have made a difference. But what I think we need to resist is that the Sheffield United performance was terrible. The Arsenal draw was probably a fair result. The win over Southampton was fantastic. And where we are now against Everton is we should be talking about a 3-2 win where on the attack we were very good, but defensively we need to improve. But we know that because we need a centre-back and we're not going to win the title with a defence like that. Unfortunately, we ended up 3-3. We ended up 3-3. Excuse me. We ended up 3-3 because of the way we game managed the last 10 seconds. And I've said it a couple of times on this show already, but we need to be very careful about where we apportion the blame here. The reality is we're 10 seconds away from a really good 3 points. And what people are not doing as well is we're not respecting Everton. We're not respecting the fact that Everton are managed by Ancelotti, and we're not respecting the fact that Everton are a decent team up near the top of the table. They're a good side, Everton. So there's no shame in drawing with Everton. It's not, especially this season, there is no shame. I'm sure Everton will pick up some good points again. They already have this season. But at 3-2 with 10 seconds to go, you've got to look at why it ended up 3-3. And there's only one person to blame. The defensive line that he should be organising, he plays everybody onside. There's 4 Everton players offside. And the ball is always going to land where it's going to go. And as the best header of the ball and the captain of the team, you've got to clear everybody out and go and win that ball. And then Calvert-Lewin ends up 1-on-1 and he scores. We drew that game, because of Harry Maguire. And he needs to take it on the chin. We need to take it on the chin and we need to move on because we can't buy anybody and we've got loads of games left. And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, most important of all, needs to know why we drew that game. And if he doesn't know why we drew that game, then he shouldn't be manager of Man United because it's bloody obvious to anybody who's a football fan who watches football. So I think going after other players and going after the manager is not right. Of course, there's people who are Ole out and they're going to go Ole out because they're waiting for any opportunity to do that. But I think if we win that game 3-2, none of this is being discussed. And why did we draw 3-3? Because we didn't manage the last 10 seconds because a certain player screwed it up for us. And sometimes a player has got to take it on the chin. And Harry Maguire's got to take it on the chin. Especially as the captain of the club, he's got to take it on the chin. And that's where that was the issue last night. So going after Solskjaer, I don't agree with it. I mean, I want to get into what you all think. But for me, look, you're always going to find issue with the manager, but when you score 3 goals against Everton, you should win the game. And then when you don't win the game, you've got to look at why you don't win the game. And yes, both the first and second goal were preventable, but the third goal is criminal. Absolutely criminal. I would drop him if I had another centre-back for that. Just a criminal. Get back on the training ground, watch that video and start getting a pair of balls and start going and winning the ball because you're the best header in the team. Drop both centre-backs and bring in 2 others, says David Page. The trouble is we haven't got the luxury of doing that, have we? I wish we did. Terminate Maguire's contract, says Callum Stock. Look, genuinely, I like Harry Maguire and I think he's a good centre-back with Eric Bailly. So I wouldn't be like, sell him, this, that and the other. But sometimes a player costs you a game. You could say that Martial's sending off against Spurs led to us losing 6-1. Sometimes a player does something and it costs you a game. I mean, look, Steven Gerrard's probably Liverpool's greatest ever player. When he came on off the bench and got sent off after 60 seconds, he cost them the game that day. Is he not a legend of Liverpool anymore? Sometimes people make mistakes. What needs to happen is, and Bruno's brilliant at it, he comes out and exposes the problem, the defence. Sometimes I've heard Harry Maguire come out and said we need to defend better as a team. It's not we, it's you, mate. You've got to take responsibility for that. I would love Harry Maguire to come out this morning and say it's on me, because that's what a leader should do. And that's what the fans know happened. And if he did that, he'd get loads more people respecting him. Now, I respect him anyway. And I think, playing with Bay, he's absolutely fine. But accountability is really important in this game. Honesty. We want accountability from our referees. So some accountability from our players would be nice. No one's going to go in on him if he admits it was his fault last night. But that's strong leadership. And at the moment, I think it's lacking. Hope you're doing well. I think there's something with the size, the turf, the lighting and empty seats in Old Trafford. Says Omkar. We should start Dan James at centre-back, says Fabulous. And Bruno can't get dropped for telling the truth, says Riley. Anyone going to talk about how slow and weak De Gea was coming off his line for the third, says G. Mitchie. Well, I think we've said, look, mate, we can talk about that. But as I said, I don't really think you understand football if you're going to blame De Gea for the third goal, because Calvert-Lewin's one-on-one. As I said, you could have Russell Crowe in Gladiator running out with his sword and his baton and whatever. Calvert-Lewin's one-on-one. If De Gea makes that save, it's brilliant. It's absolutely world class. But Calvert-Lewin's one-on-one. Any top striker one-on-one, doesn't matter whether you've got 2 goalkeepers, they're going to back themselves. This is my issue this morning, is that I don't mind people blaming De Gea, but you're doing it to protect a player who really cost us. Like, one-on-one, a striker should score. It's always the way. Penalty, a striker should score. He's one-on-one. He should score. I don't think De Gea does much wrong there, but if you think he does, fine. But you're moving the blame from the real cause to somebody else for some reason. Is it because he's Spanish? Is it because you don't like him? Is it because I don't know? But this is what the media did last night, and it's disgraceful. And I don't mind De Gea getting some blame, but if you're putting the blame on De Gea for the draw, I'm sorry, I have to say, in my opinion, you're doing it based on bias agenda, because there is absolutely no way, and I don't want to keep repeating this because it's not fair on Harry Maguire, but he should go and win the header, and he should also, as captain, be level with his defensive line, who's playing everybody offside, apart from him, and then he puts his hand up for offside. He leads to Calvert-Lewin being one-on-one. If he just stays in line, it's appalling as a captain to not be in line with your defence. If he's in line with his defence, 4 Everton players are offside and we've won that game. It's that simple. Forget what happens about the one-on-one. If he stays in line, we win that game. Or even better, if he goes to try and win the ball like Vidic would, like a captain should, like the best header of the ball should. He positions himself away from the ball, he takes no responsibility to go and win the ball, and then he plays everybody onside. That is why we drew the game. People need to stop moving the blame from these centre-backs because they've cost us multiple chances, times to win trophies, and already the Euros will expose Maguire, says Gabriel Noel. Mark, you should have bought Martinez. He's one of the best goalkeepers in the league, says Amy Assi. Mark, your honest opinion is the title race over, says Philip Burtonwood. I think City go 8 points ahead of us if they win the league, don't they? If they win their game in hand and they win today. I think it is. I don't know. At the moment, I still think top 4 looks good for us, which will quite rightly lead to a new contract for Solskjaer. Look, never say never because anything can happen. But Man City would have to collapse ridiculously. And as we've seen with our side, if you've got a good defence, you win last night. We've got a bad defence. So that defence is not going to suddenly start being good. If you're the attacker for Man United, if you're Cavani or Bruno this morning, you're like, doesn't matter how many goals we score, they're going to fuck it up. So 3 goals should win you the game. They should be happy with their goals. Bruno's goal was fantastic. They should be sat there this morning getting all the plaudits. Instead, we're talking about defenders. So no, I don't think we're in a title race. No, I don't think we can win the title. And I didn't think we could at the start of the season. And I don't think we can now. Because defensively, we've been on about it all season. We call them Harry the Hoover and Victor the Vacuum because they suck everybody close to them to protect them. No, I don't think we can win the title. And we can't win the title for the reason I started the show. We've scored more goals than anybody, which makes you a title contender. But we've conceded more goals than anyone in the top 10. Disgraceful. Defence has cost any chance of a title. And I think everybody knows that. I just have high expectations. The fridge bought in was useless, says Omka. And people need... Gabriel, you should have bought the player with the same... he was less than half of Maguire, says Amy Assi. Okay, I think Zane needs to focus on Arsenal because you lost yesterday in your mid-table, but there you go. Anyway, thanks everyone for watching. Please smash a like on the video. Make sure you subscribe. If you want to continue the chat, get on the Flick app. It's free to download on Apple and Android. 24/7 chat on there. I am doing a watch-along for Liverpool-Manchester City this afternoon at 4 o'clock on Mark Goldbridge, That's Football, and we'll be back on here at 8 o'clock as well. Thanks everyone for watching. It's a tough one to swallow, but I'm glad that it's not really been a ranty show and we've actually digested it in a very mature way. I think it's one of the best reactions to a game we've ever done, so well done to you lot, because the club apparently think the fans are hysterical. We're not hysterical. We've actually calmly spoken about the issues today, and will the club solve those issues? They didn't last summer. Will they do it this summer? And that's the question, isn't it? Because if we keep playing this team, we'll keep having results last night. Thanks for watching. Speak to you all soon. Stay safe, and I'll see you later.